Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Engage to Excel Group webinar, Becoming a Better Recognition Giver. I am Tamika Figaro, the moderator for today, and I'm also joined by our guest speaker, Roy Sanderson. The goal for today's webinar is to have an insightful conversation and answer any of the questions you have around the topic. So we do our best to address subjects that we think will benefit you. However, we're also open to suggestions. So if there's anything you would like us to address regarding employee recognition or engagement, please send us an email at e2egroupmarketing@e2egroup.com. You should see it in the chat box. Here we go. So before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. We encourage everyone to ask questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, as your microphone will be muted. And if we don't have time to get to your question, know that we'll follow up with you personally via email. So lastly, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available on the Rideau and Engage to Excel Vimeo channels within 3 business days. We will make sure we send everyone a link via email when it's ready to watch. So for today's webinar, I am joined by Roy Sanderson, the Chief Learning Officer of the Engage to Excel Group. Roy has been in the employee recognition field for 24 years now, and he's also the author of Practicing Recognition: How to Give Meaningful Recognition to People Every Day. You'll see that he's very passionate about employee recognition, and he loves being able to teach people how to give real recognition the right way. Roy, we're really excited to join you. We're really excited to have you join us today.
Well, it's good to be here, Tamika. Good to be with you again, and see if we can explore this subject and help people.
Absolutely. So today's subject is about becoming a better recognition giver. We've noticed that many people struggle with giving recognition, and they don't necessarily feel comfortable giving it. So could you tell us why most people don't feel comfortable giving recognition?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic there, Tamika. I think we have to consider our different backgrounds, where we've grown up, or time era, what generation we're from, things like this. I grew up in England, and I never heard the words "I love you" spoken from my parents. And when I think about it, I got very little praise either. And then in the school system, oh my goodness, believe it or not, Tamika, back then I used to get C's and D's when I was in elementary school and even a little bit in high school. And they all the teachers could do was just say, could do better, could do better. And it was like focusing on the negative things rather than the positive. So I'm sure many of our viewers and attendees today have gone through different life experiences, home, work, school, and they haven't received recognition. So when you don't get it, you don't know how to give it. And that kind of reminds me of Adam Grant. I don't know if you read any of his books, but I love one of his first books, which was Give and Take. And what he did as an organizational psychologist, he's from the Wharton School of Business, and as an IO psychologist, he found out that there are different kind of personality types, and you could kind of categorize them as either being givers, takers, or even matchers. And what he means here is that some people are more naturally inclined to give in many different areas of their lives, whether that be philanthropic causes, giving recognition, whatever. Others are more on the takers. They want to receive, but they don't care about giving. And then the matchers, matchers are, and they're the most predominant. They're probably about 60% of people are matchers, where they literally, if they receive recognition, they want to make sure they give recognition. It's a kind of a tit for tat kind of mindset that they go through. So I think when you look at that, that means that not everyone may be naturally inclined to give recognition. But I think the wonderful thing, no matter what kind of personality type or how you've grown up, what generation you're from, we can all learn to give recognition. It's not like we take this at university. There's no course on how to give recognition at university, for example. We're not necessarily taught it even when we're in high school or whatever. Nothing gets taught about this, but we can learn it. And that's why we try to provide the education that we can to assist people to give recognition the right way.
Hmm. So what are some skills we can develop to become a better recognition giver?
Mm-hmm. It seems commonsensical in many ways, but it's being a better listener. It's being a better observer of people around us and picking up, even when we have our calls, picking up on things that are being said in emails that we might receive, where people are succeeding, where people are struggling, where people are passionate about certain things. It's knowing that and observing that and then commenting about it. And if you receive some assistance from someone, it's being automatic with thanking them right away. And I think as we become better listeners, better observers, uh, you are going to notice in your interactions with people the great things that are going on, the amazing things that are going on. It shouldn't be about you. We shouldn't be the ones blowing our own horn about successes we've had. It should be more outward minded. We need to be thinking outward of other people. And I find it exciting actually to be looking for things. I do this, obviously before COVID, probably went to the restaurants more often. And, you get the server coming up to you and you notice that any server, waiter, waitress is wearing a name tag. They have their name on them. So they must want you to use their name, no? So I always greet them by their name and thank them for doing whatever the order was and coming back. And I always look at them, I look up at them and I'll say, thank you, David, thank you, Mary, for bringing that or whatever. And I want you to know they smile back, they're grateful, and you've got a rapport going on. So it's no matter where we are, work, home, play, we need to be interacting with people more, observing, and it's a fun experience to give recognition when you get that involved.
Yeah. So what is the benefit of asking questions from a recognition perspective?
Yeah, I've talked about questions quite a bit. When we're really engaged with the people we're communicating with, it is a give and take. And you'll find that leaders, good leaders, it's kind of a 50-50 play between asking questions and making comments. They've done a lot of research on high performing teams, and high performing teams have leaders who literally have this give and take of asking questions and making comments. When you ask questions, you learn more. You identify the interests of a person. You find out what they're working on. And that's all going to be great material, if you wish, for what to comment on and what to recognize. So questions are the key to finding out what people are doing and gives you great opportunity to give more recognition. I think more often than not, our jobs are so changing that we don't even know what people are doing in their jobs anymore. So it's only by asking questions that we'll learn more to give more.
So before we continue, Roy, I'd like to remind everyone who just joined that they can ask questions in the Q&A box. I will take the questions as they come in and read them to Roy. So Roy, how do you suggest we start each day with giving recognition the right way?
There's lots of ways in which you can start your day. I like to think about some people that I might not have connected with recently. And so I will plan when I will reach out and connect with them. Too often we create to-do lists, and I'm one to go away from to-do lists and literally just slot it into the calendar. If it's on the calendar, it gets done, it happens. So don't hesitate to plan some connecting opportunities, a call, video conference, reaching out by email. whatever way you need to. Just reach out. Used to be one of the telecommunication companies used to say, reach out and touch someone. You know, it was meant to kind of, we need to connect. And I think a lot of people are craving that. They're needing that. They need that sense of belonging. I think you can start each day by sending out an email of gratitude, even before you open up your inbox. You know, don't go into the stream of floods of emails that kind of overwhelm you. Start it off with expressing gratitude. Find a gratitude quote, there's tons of them online, and send it to someone because of what they have done, because of what they help you with, how they contribute to the organization and your work. And then think about the interactions you have. Here's the interesting thing about making interactions. The more interactions you have with people, the more you're going to learn and hear what they're doing. So therefore, you've got more chances for giving recognition. So I think planning those interaction points in to your schedule is important. I think learning to be more positive and starting your day on a positive note is good for you, let alone for the individual who receives your comments. But it's a fun way to think about gratitude rather than the overwhelm of, don't want to look at the emails in my inbox.
Yes. Well, do you have any suggestions for enlisting the help of others with giving recognition?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tamika, because especially now with many of us working from home, we don't get to see what other people are doing. And I think it's good to find out, you know, if you have a staff, then maybe you have an assistant who reaches out to supervisors and managers, for example. Or, you know, you might have a team meeting with managers and supervisors and learn what some of the employees are doing. I remember in a financial institution, one of our clients, and one of the directors literally would have a Friday meeting with their managers and supervisors, and she would ask them, what are some of the great things that are going on in the department right now? And she would hear all different kinds of comments and feedback about different employees that she personally could never have known about. And because of those comments, she would make notes of the names of the individuals, what they had done, and she went on to the online social recognition program that the company had, and she would send out some comments, and she would say, you know, I just heard some comments from Bill about some of the work you've been doing. Just want to commend you for what you're doing. Keep up the great work. So we can't be expected to know, to see, to hear. You know, I think of nurses, for example, in healthcare. Nurse managers don't get to see the nurses working with the patients in their rooms. So all this work is going on, if you kind of almost behind closed doors, so to speak. So we need to hear these comments, these positive things that are going on, and then we can add to hopefully the recognition they've already received from people who do know what's going on.
Well, I see we have a question from someone here.
Okay.
So the question is, as someone who is not a manager, what recommendations do you have for giving recognition?
Yes, this is where I would say you have the greatest opportunity, because it sounds like if you're not in a managerial position where you may be hindered from seeing or knowing what other people are doing, I find it's exciting to be almost a recognition revolutionary by being with your peers and doing exactly the same things I've shared, yes, from a manager point of view, but in the sense of sharing the wealth. You may know a team member that's struggling, and just sending an email out to them saying, I'm aware of the pressure you're going through. I'm really grateful for all you're doing to make my life easier. And I just want to let you know that I'm thinking of you, and I hope that you'll be able to handle the pressures of things. That's the struggle side. And then you're going to have support from your colleagues that you're receiving, and that's another chance. And don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call people. It's kind of ironic. We're almost sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, and it's a great tool to pick up and reach out to connect with people. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we're actually seeing a lower usage of some of our e-cards, comments on social recognition, even, as I say, more face-to-face like recognition opportunities, even if it is done remotely. There's a bit of a decline because we're a little bit overwhelmed with how we're working. We can get more email requests now than ever before because we don't have as many meetings. So now the inbox is flooding. So be mindful of your colleagues. Kind of be excited about being a recognition revolutionary and take the initiative to reach out, to connect, to comment on people's help to you. Use your emails to express gratitude and to thank people for what they're doing. Be immediate with your response. All these kind of etiquette behaviors, recognition behaviors, you can be a great individual in being able to initiate these behaviors and be an example to your colleagues. So take the bull by the horns, as they say, and give recognition anywhere and everywhere you can by connecting.
It's true, and like you said, the more we get to know people, the more we feel comfortable giving recognition. So in this time, I feel like we should take more time to get to know the others and take more time to give recognition because we forget about it because of COVID, the
Yes.
isolation.
Yeah, the isolation does create this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's breaking that barrier and reaching out that allows us to have more interactions. More interactions gives you more information on how to recognize and what to recognize.
Definitely. So you talked about starting the day with recognition on our minds. Do you have tips to end the day with recognition? What can we do as managers, even employees, colleagues?
Sure. I think all of us can kind of reflect at the end of the day. I don't know about you, but there's times where, yes, work does dominate, and it's all through these wonderful computers that we have where we're preoccupied. So I think building in a few minutes, even if it's just like 15 minutes at the end of the day, to stop and think, reflect. Is there anyone like missed saying thank you to today? I forgot about responding back on this email that somebody sent me with the information I asked for. Let's just send a quick thank you, and also I'll comment tomorrow on what you've sent me. It doesn't mean you're neglecting them. Just thank them for what they've sent and tell them what you're going to do. I think it's like thinking about your recognition programs. If you have online recognition programs, it might be a chance for you to go online and use those programs to send out some e-cards, send out some comments on your social recognition program. If you want to make a real difference, you might even purchase some thank you cards, some note cards, and send a handwritten note to someone to thank them. Just take 10, 15 minutes, end of the day. Write a few comments to someone. I don't know about you, but most of the mail today is either junk mail or bills. So it's nice to be able to get a note in the mail. What a novel twist to go above perhaps the technology that we are so used to. But yeah, let's just kind of encourage one another and think about how we can recognize someone who we need to do something for. I remember, I'm just thinking now of someone who was recognized by their manager through a voicemail message that was left on their phone after hours. They'd left, the manager thought about them and their great work, and they knew they'd probably be gone. They called them up and left a message. This employee told me that they couldn't erase that message. they listened to it over and over again because it meant a lot. It was obviously a very sincere, very genuine, very specific kind of recognition message that their manager had left, but it was so recognition worthy that the individual couldn't delete it for many months.
That's interesting. I feel like when we have a lot of work to do throughout our day, we sometimes forget. So what we do in our team is we start the meeting with a recognition portion where we take time to recognize the people from the team. And I find that when you forget during the day, it's a good opportunity just to shed some light on what your teammate has done. And I find your example was really clever. The boss, I wish I had a boss like this. Just it's so great. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and Tamika, I think with your comment about building in time to share, moments of recognition in your meetings, it's really important to put it first. Often I've seen leaders, managers in organizations, they dutifully put recognition, but it's seen as not as important as all the tasks. So they put it at the bottom of the agenda. And then time, you and I know when we are task oriented, we always talk longer than what we think the agenda is going to take. Then all of a sudden, okay, we're running out of time. So now recognition gets thrown away. I think when we put it first, we're saying that we value people first. And it gives us a time to connect on a much more positive level than what the crazy work agenda is really going to be about. But it's a wonderful opportunity. So yeah, put recognition first in your meetings. I think that's important.
Yeah. So Roy, you have taught a lot of managers and also employees over the years to become better recognizers. Do you have final tips for us today?
Okay, some final ideas. I think I've often commented in either our previous webinars or in my blog posts that it's important to use positive vocabulary. Unfortunately, I don't know who started it all, but we start saying good job as if it's the greatest recognition piece of expression that we've ever said. And it's useless. A good job is neutral at best. It's not really meaningful. It doesn't say anything. So I think we need to create some positive vocabulary. That was amazing. That was exciting. That was wonderful. We've got to start using these kinds of positive words. And my whole theory about being very specific about our recognition. And when you combine positive vocabulary with being specific about the recognition, you'll get rid of the good jobs and the well dones that don't really mean anything to people anymore. And yet we somehow feel locked in to using those expressions. So try to ban saying good job or well done and get excited about giving your recognition using more positive vocabulary. I think another idea is that here we are on a webinar and we're enjoying connecting because we see one another. I think video is a great tool to replicate the face-to-face recognition that is always seen as the more valuable, the more highly appreciated kinds of recognition. And since we don't have those opportunities as much to meet face-to-face, let's use our recognition programs that have video, the option to send a video message. Let's do that. And if we don't have that, let's use our smartphones and go to our messenger, whatever format it is, and use the camera app to send a short, no longer than 1 minute video message of greeting and recognition. I think we can start being a little bit more creative with our recognition opportunities during these times of the COVID situation and the working from home, or just the lack of connection, no matter what our work situation. So be creative, start doing things a little better. Let's look for ways in which, what's one thing we can do better today? What's one thing we can do better next week with our recognition. Think about it. Plan that in. Plan to experiment a little bit with how you give recognition. And I think we can all become better recognition givers.
Yes, Barbara says, be sincere and timely, which I think is a good point.
Very much so. I think the sincerity piece I found with the two-part specificity rule, where the first part is identifying the action rather than just good job. What is a good job? We don't know yet. So let's be specific about what the action or behavior was. The second part is focusing on the impact or the difference the person made. And when we've surveyed, attendees of our workshops, they certainly commented that there are certainly managers or peers that were being specific on identifying the action or behavior, but they could always question it, especially if it was a manager. Like if I did something and the manager said, Tamika, I really appreciate you getting that report in. You're thinking, okay, now what do they want? You might not know for sure. You might not know for sure. But if they added the impact that you made, so Tamika, thank you so much for getting that report in on time. Now I'm able to create my presentation for the executive team, and I really appreciate your guidance. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't realize my report was going to be ending up in the executive, summary presentation that my boss was going to make. And all of a sudden it's like, that is sincere. I know this is authentic. I know I made a difference. That's how sincerity can be shown. And we found from our workshop attendees that they said that the second part, the impact or difference part, showed the authenticity. And then timeliness, oh my goodness, if you see something, say something. If you receive something, say something. You've got to do it right away. I like that.
Thank you, Barbara. So we have one question, and I think it's going to be the last one.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, my company does a lot to recognize employees, but employees report they don't receive much recognition. What do you think could be the gap?
Well, it's funny. I just wrote about that this week, and that is that if we were to do like an employee engagement survey of this organization, I would not be a bit surprised that the recognition questions that get asked will score below 65% on an engagement survey. So I'm putting that interpretation on this individual's comments. And what I will tell you is that it is the everyday recognition that is lacking. Every time I see engagement scores around recognition questions that are below 65%, I'm able to say with confidence now, because I've seen hundreds of organizations, lots of these surveys, and I'm able to say to the leaders and managers in the room who present me with that data, I say, it sounds like it's the everyday recognition that is not happening. The personal connections, the face-to-face, the video conference, the reaching out connections that allow us to know what people are doing and recognize them for it. So what they can do is start making plans around everyday recognition. What can we do to encourage people to give recognition on an everyday basis? You've brought up, Tamika, the idea of staff meetings and bringing in that agenda item for recognition at the beginning. What are ways in which we can, when we have our various team meetings that seem to be more virtual now than ever before, is to really listen carefully and thank people for what they are doing, because it's being done under a lot of stress in many cases. I have colleagues where all of a sudden, oh my goodness, it's a teacher connect time and I've got to run upstairs to help my daughter connect to the computer upstairs. It's like when they come back saying, wow, thank you for doing what you're doing on top of being a mom and having to deal with a child that's at home and having to do remote schooling. It's acknowledging that personal stuff, not just the work outputs and the results that we so desperately need. So I think those are just some thoughts, but think about this is an everyday recognition concern that I believe is being identified here. Make plans to address it and work solidly at it, and you'll make a big difference.
Yeah. So I think it's our time for today, and I don't think we have more questions, do we?
All
No, we
right.
do. So thank you everyone who asked questions. If I didn't have time to get to your question, or if you have a question during the week, you can contact us via the email on the chat box. Thank you, Roy, for your time, and thank you everyone for joining. We hope the discussion was insightful. And again, if you have topic suggestions that you want us to cover, don't hesitate to contact us at the email address on the chat box again. Thank you, everyone. Have a very good afternoon, and I'll see you again on the next webinar.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, Roy.
Bye-bye, Tamika.